We are ready.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the North Bend City Council work session and URA work session. I will go ahead and call the meeting to order and ask our city recorder to take roll call.
Councilor Jones. Here. Councilor Hamilton.
Here.
Councilor Garwood.
Here.
Mayor Ingleby.
Here.
Councilor Goff.
Here.
Councilor Schultz.
Present.
Councilor Nora.
Present.
Thank you.
All right. Next item of business is we have the VCB semi-annual report presentation.
Public comment.
I apologize. We'll go ahead and ask if there's any public comment first. Do we have any public comments?
There is none.
Okay. I do not see any online either, correct?
Correct.
And so we'll go ahead and move to number 4 for the semi-annual report presentation. Hello.
Hello, Mayor Ingleby, City Council members. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak on behalf of the Visitor and Convention Bureau. Just a quick update on what's been happening for the last 6 months or so. First, I'll talk about our budget. These are unaudited financials. We've ended the year in a very positive situation where we brought in almost $250,000 more in lodging tax income than we had budgeted, and we spent about $200,000 less than we had intended. So we are in a good position. We've, of course, used those funds to get us through this first quarter when more funds start coming in again. So that's where we ended our situation the last fiscal year. Going into our new budget year, we have budgeted about almost $1.4 million. That includes over $1 million in lodging tax revenues coming in from the TLT, the transient lodging tax that is collected at commercial lodging properties in Coos Bay, North Bend, and in an area just around Charleston. Other income is things like interest and reimbursements and such. We also get a management fee from the city of Coos Bay for what we do at the Visitor Information Center there. That grants line will be amended with a supplemental budget sometime later in the year as we have gotten grant monies in for the Holiday Light Shuttle. So I'll talk about that in just a second. And then our expenses are heavily for the VCB, of course, because we do all the advertising, a little bit less, quite a bit less that we spend at the Visitor Information Center. Visitor spending in 2023, this is the last full year we have visitor spending data for. For Coos Bay, North Bend, and Charleston, visitors to our area spent almost $150 million. That's 45% of the county total. The rest of it is mostly Bandon area and then a little bit in the Lakeside, Coquille, and Myrtle Point areas. Powers a little bit of it. For the county, visitors spent almost $330 million in 2023. Of course, these are spent on things like accommodations, dining out, gas, food and beverage stores, retail sales, and of course our arts, entertainment, and recreation. For Coos Bay, North Bend, and Charleston, we were up in all of these areas except gasoline and local transportation, but for the county, we were up in all areas. In 2022, the Visitor and Convention Bureau began counting or calculating our return on investment to show our funders how much what we do benefits our area. So again, as a reminder, we cannot count all $150 million of visitor spending as being influenced by our advertising. I would love to say we can, but we can't. The industry average is about 15%. So taking that calculation, if we look at the visitor spending in our area times that 15%, you get about almost $22 million that could be considered influenced by the Visitor and Convention Bureau, which gives us a return on investment of $27.50 brought into our communities for every dollar that the Visitor and Convention Bureau spends. That's a really good return on investment. So we're really pleased with that. It went up about $1 over 2022. Just a quick update on our strategic plan. A couple of years back, you guys may remember, we created a strategic plan for the Visitor and Convention Bureau. We had 5 objectives. Of course, our number one objective, which is always the number one objective of a destination marketing organization, is to bring visitors to our area. What we hope to do with these new campaigns is increase the length of stay. So our newest ad campaigns not only talk about fishing, but they talk about fishing with a guide. It doesn't only talk about running events, but running events and then going to see the art museum's display of Prefontaine's memorabilia. So we are doing some complementary assets with our advertising right now. Currently, one of our advertising campaigns is talking about our 15% discount at our lodging properties along with fall fishing. So we're trying to bring some things together that will encourage people to stay a little longer. Our second objective, of course, was to deepen our community engagement. We now have an industry newsletter, and that audience has grown by 50% in the last 6 months, and it continues to grow. We are also nurturing and promoting our area as a welcoming, diverse community. So we've added some and encouraged some additions of things like hearing loops. I don't know if you know what a hearing loop is. It is for people who have hearing loss but have hearing aids. It takes out all the ambient sound and only hears the person who's actually speaking into the microphone. So we have those set up at the Coos Bay Visitor Information Center. I'm hoping to chat with our friends here at the North Bend Visitor Center and getting a set of hearing loops put in there as well. It helps our visitors to understand. We discovered this, of course, during the pandemic when we not only had plexiglass but masks, and people on the other side could not understand a word our volunteers said. And so we started looking at ways to help that. On top of that, our whole community now has a David's chair, which is an all-terrain track wheelchair that people can borrow. It doesn't cost anything for somebody to check it out. They just have to do it online. And it can go on our beaches. It can go on our trails. As you guys know, our trails have a lot of roots. They're very difficult to traverse, especially in a regular wheelchair. And we also are working on a redesign of our website that will be also more accessible. It has stuff to do with the difference in light and contrast and things like that. So we're working on a lot of that. We also are advocating for asset and infrastructure improvements. We are supporting the airport's grant for additional air service, and we are advocating for some other multimodal transportation options here in our area. And then finally, we are building our organizational capacity. We did bring on a contractor for that newsletter, and we have a new staff member that I'll talk about at the end of my presentation that is helping us to do a bit more marketing. So just a couple of things that we've been doing recently. First off, I'll say we do very little print advertising anymore. Print is very hard to track. But every now and again, we get a really good deal. And 1859 magazine approached us with a really awesome opportunity. They even put our ad in the inside back cover. As you guys know, that is prime real estate for an advertisement in a magazine. Again, we were promoting our Fall 15. We also, this other print ad will give you an idea of the asset coordination that we've been talking about to increase length of stay. This is one of our fishing ads that also talks about all of our charter services. We do a lot of sponsored content, which are newsletters. In this case, these are 3 different newsletters we did with Kezi TV and Willamette Week. These are branded like they're ours, but they went to the subscribers of Kezi and Willamette Week, which are in the thousands of subscribers, got to see these. We also promote our big events. We promoted the Circle the Bay 30K. Here is Oregon, which is part of Oregon Live, did an entire reel that showed the runners running all the way around and ending up coming over the bridge. We all love that bridge image there. And when it gets hot in the valley, we really talk about cool at the coast and coming to be here cool at the coast. And lately we've been talking about you won't want to coast anywhere else. That's our new tagline. And then Fall 15 is our big fall campaign that we do with our lodging properties. We ask them to offer a 15% discount on a 2-night stay. We have 10 properties participating this year, including the Quality Inn and the Itty Bitty Inn from here in North Bend. Our next project, I'm working with Stephanie on getting a professional photographer out to the ice skating rink once it is set up. And she's looking for some skaters that know how to skate. And we're going to take some professional photos for us to use for holiday promotions. We don't actually use this great photo of Stephanie and Santa and the Grinch, but I absolutely love it, so I use it for presentations when I can. We do use the other photographs to help promote the ice skating rink. Holiday Light Shuttle will run again. We have it fully funded, thankfully. These are the businesses in town that are supporting the 2 shuttle buses that will run every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights from Thanksgiving to New Year's Eve, plus Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and New Year's Eve. So we're very pleased and happy with the businesses that stepped up this year to help us cover the costs of the buses. And then we did have some changes in our staff. Cheryl Crockett, who was with the Visitor and Convention Bureau for the last 6 years, but was with the Coos Bay Visitor Information Center for 21 years, retired at the end of last week. But while that was sad, we were also happy to announce that we hired Johnny Eads. She used to be with the Coos History Museum. She has a bit more marketing background and some ability to help take some things off of mine and Allison's plates moving forward. So we're very pleased to have Johnny on our team. Look, I got through it.
Nice. Okay. 3 minutes. I have a quick question though, because I think a lot of us get these kind of questions all the time because they think we know everything. And so people always ask about the shuttles, and you said they're on the weekends and then the holidays. Is it going to be where you sign up and you get the ticket type of thing?
Okay, so that is for the parking. You have to, if you want to park at Shore Acres, you have to book a parking pass. This gives people an alternative. You don't have to book. You just have to show up. It doesn't cost anything. You just get on the bus. Now, I will say that the buses will run from about 4:15 to 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock in the evening is the cutoff because the park closes at 9. It takes about 15 minutes to get from the Charleston Marina to Shore Acres on a bus. And so we want people to have enough time to enjoy the lights before they have to pile back on a bus and come back to the marina. So we run the buses between that 4:15 to 8:10 is really pushing it.
Will you have a pickup point? How many pickup points will you have?
This year, it'll just be out of the marina, which is where it was last year. So if you go into the marina, it's where the boat washing station is, because there's really bright lights right there. So it makes it a little safer for everybody involved. And we're keeping it free because we want everybody to have access to going to the lights.
A great opportunity for somebody to have a little hot cocoa stand right there.
Yeah, you have to talk to the port about that.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions from the council?
I had a general question about how do you choose what to advertise? Do you proactively go look at the city calendars, or does somebody have to approach you?
So it depends on what's happening. We have a set of adventures that we plot out throughout the year. Fall fishing, storm watching, hiking, dunes, those kinds of things. And then we intersperse that with the big events. So the holiday lights and the fun festivals and the skating rink and things like that. So it depends on where it falls within a calendar. The big things get, of course, a bit more advertising because those things will draw people here. But we also will promote through our social and display ads smaller events that we know about, that we know people will find of interest.
So
Don't forget the July Jubilee.
July Jubilee.
Yeah. Good reminder.
We actually did a full campaign on July Jubilee this year, so we'll do that again next year.
Jessica just kicked me.
Ask her about July Jubilee. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, so we'll continue because that is considered one of our big events. So we will continue to promote that as a big event every year.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you for coming and giving us an update.
Thank you. And I'm always, my door is always open. So if anybody has questions about how the lodging tax is collected, how it's used, please don't hesitate to ask. And if you have a question about our campaigns, we're always willing to do that too. Talk about that too.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, number 5, is the agenda item special called Youth Council Meeting Discussion that I had requested to carry over from this time, or to carry over to this meeting. We had a discussion at the work session 2 weeks ago and talked about how really over the past probably 4 years or so, we've talked about how to get the youth more involved with the city council, figuring out ways for them to learn about local government. And I had approached the superintendent and the principal of the high school to see what their thoughts were about having a council meeting on their campus. And they were open to the ideas of this. When we discussed it last time, we had some of the counselors have some concerns about what type of burden this would put on the staff and what it would look like. And I actually went back, because one of the things that we discussed as a group was, does it actually need to be an official council meeting, or are there other ways to achieve the goals that we want, which is to, again, have the youth engaged, learn about city government, and exposure to them on these things. When I did speak with Mr. Hood, is the teacher that I've been working with on this, and I said, well, what are you talking about and learning about in your classes right now? And he's like, actually, we're learning about the democratic process and what it's like to have an agenda item, to discuss it, and then go for a vote, and what a quorum is, and a majority, and what happens if it fails. So he's like, if you actually did a council meeting, that would be a really good learning experience for them. So I circled back with our, and I actually asked him, like, well, okay, so what would that look like? What day of the week would be the best? He gave me a day. Thursdays are really normally pretty good. There's a time period that would be good for his class, but what he's picturing is having this meeting in the Hall of Champions, so it would open it up more than just a classroom, because it's a bigger capacity there, and he could invite some of the other classrooms in. And at that 11 o'clock hour, the goal would be to keep the actual special called meeting under an hour, but you've got a little bit of wiggle room there because it would flow into lunch if it went a little bit later. In that discussion that we had last week too, again, one of the concerns was like, well, if we did it this way though, what does it look like for staff? What are the extra things? So when I met with our city administrator earlier, one of the things we talked about is, well, we would still need to record it. We would need to make sure that there was a way to have that recording available. We would be having this meeting at the school, but the school actually has their own process of when you check in. So when you go to the high school, there would be, because it would be, if we did move forward and have this be a council meeting, and other individuals in the community wanted to come watch that, they would just also have to check into the high school before they came into the council meetings. Usually I believe they scan your ID and you have a visitor badge that's put on. Mr. City Administrator, what else am I forgetting about? It would have to be special, it would be noticed. And that was my big question, is that I obviously this is something that I'm trying to move forward, and I did hear the concerns of the council. I know that doing an event like this, if we had a special called meeting, Councilor Gall could have a ship come in and he might not be able to come that day. It'd probably be near impossible for Mrs. Schultz to get out of her teaching schedule. But it did sound like there was a good chance I could get at least a quorum of 4 people. But the biggest thing is I wanted to find out, is this an outrageous burden that we'd be putting on staff, and or is it something that they felt like it was manageable? And so when Mr. Milliron and I met earlier, what I was hearing from you was you were saying that there would be a little bit more administrative work, but nothing that would be something that the staff couldn't handle.
That's correct. The city doesn't have its own recording equipment stuff, but I have, and I've used it in the past when we've done it at the community center. That was my equipment that we used, so I just happen to own my own equipment. So we have the capabilities to capture and record and do as we have in the past. And then because we have changed up how we do minutes, that is the official recording. The only thing that we may not be able to do based on their Wi-Fi over there is live stream. I don't know that we'll be able to do that. And maybe I could set up a phone, but that would be the only thing that we probably couldn't accomplish. So if the school denied anyone access, they wouldn't be able to participate in the meeting or do the remote. And so it's, as a special call, it's sort of kind of a unique situation. And so under special call, when you do something out of your normal location, you actually usually have to go a little bit more above board. And so we'll just have to figure those logistics out.
Okay.
Well, I'm a big supporter of my son's a teacher at North Bend High School, so I'm a big supporter of North Bend High School. I think it's a doable deal if we keep it real simple and, not the bad mouth route, but maybe not have some sewer treatment plant thing on our agenda. So, but if we kept it really simple, and I think
Yeah.
that's where you're probably going with it, even if we gotta kind of halfway make something up, but yeah, keep it simple.
Okay. No offense, Mr. Denham, and we want to get students excited about city government.
A lot of biology and chemistry there.
Now, but, and I think,
I just don't get why it has to be a real,
Yeah.
meeting, so
Yeah.
that's my stickler, because I can't go,
Mhm.
and so it's just it's an annoyance to me that I'm gonna be missing a vote or missing something that I could be
Yeah.
here when I have the time every 2 weeks
Whatever
I'm
we
here.
decide, it's not gonna make much difference, so.
No, that's why I'm saying keep it really simple. I mean, something that, yeah,
when
just so
I,
they see the forum of our meetings and maybe not the content much.
So would you have like a meeting agenda?
we would have a meeting, and I
like-
did ask Mr. Hood, I said, so is this something like, it would, like, would we could have a mock meeting, or we could have a real
Yeah.
meeting, what would it look like? He's like, I want to see the whole thing. I want them to meet the counselors, to have the meeting, to see what it's like to have a vote. But I agree with you, I don't think this would be the time to have a real high-level item that we'd be voting on. And this is something that I could work with the city administrator on to, maybe some updates about the park, something, but if we could find something that's some kind of low-hanging fruit,
Okay,
that we could vote on, then.
He's like, let's move on.
Yes. So let me ask you this. My meetings are not that long. I didn't kill anybody. If there is a consensus from at least 4 of you to be able to come to a special called meeting, I'm looking at probably October 24th to call that meeting. I would do that under tomorrow night's agenda.
Oh, wow.
And the items on the meeting will be to be announced. This is something, I haven't figured all that out, because we would again look at, are there things that could be youth focused, like introducing the Jubilee Court, that sort of thing, having a vote on
Kat, you
something,
wanted to
a
be
couple.
interested.
Oh, I'm trying to get these kids involved, and he made a very specific point. He was like, I want them to do public comment. That would be part of the democratic process.
So, I think a mock council meeting where you go through the steps is the thing to do. I feel like maybe the city attorney can ease my concerns about this, but we have people who pack, who come to our meetings, and they're invited. We have people in our community with a cross-section of crimes where they're specifically barred from going on school grounds while school is in session, and we must invite them into our council. They're still part of our community. We have litigious people in our community who could easily say, you hurt my child just because, so there's things in here. And I don't think that, having done the sort of rigmarole around setting up a thing in a new location, it's never a small amount of time. Maybe the 10th time you do it, it's a small amount of time. So I do think that there's staff burden here that we're not going to be able to predict. But what is the city's liability in a situation like this? I mean, school grounds, there's a whole bunch of people that we welcome to chambers that are not allowed on school grounds.
Mr. Wolf, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, and it sounds like that was to some extent going to be vetted by the school. Is that right? When folks have to check in to get access to the school? So I guess my concern, if that's the case, is more of like public meetings and how do we get or ensure that the public, if they're not allowed on the school property, how are they allowed to participate in the public meeting? And it sounds like your administrator is working through that with some of his equipment to record and get phone accessibility and those types of things. So we'd have to, I think we could look more into that, but initially, I guess I don't have a ton of concern of holding a public meeting at the school as far as people going onto school grounds.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
And also, I can't come on the 24th. I'm at a doctor appointment in
Well,
Portland.
and that is, you know, we could
Unfair.
have a scenario where three people showed up and then we would have to explain to the students that we don't have a quorum, we can't take a vote. You know, I mean, that could be a real possibility. I think that it looks like by the reactions that I would probably have 4 people that could come. And then if something happened and somebody couldn't come, well, then it would be a meeting where we couldn't vote on anything. Ideally, having something like this to me twice a year would be to really have exposure with the students is where I'd like to see. We could have the first one, it would be a disaster and we never do it again. I don't know until we try it.
I'm just sort of concerned about the disaster being the disasters we don't want to have. Logistical disasters are one thing, but where somebody is harmed or perceives themselves to be harmed, or we are not in compliance with public meeting laws, those are serious things that can come out of the pocket of the city, aren't covered by insurance. I mean, I just feel like mock.
And so that, again, I'll ask our city administrator and our attorney to weigh in to see if they have any concerns that counselor has, or.
Well, I mean, like I said, the access controls are at the school level. And so you're on their territory, on grounds, and since it's during school, they trump. It's a different thing if they were to give us, say, access to their cafeteria, say, after hours. And so you don't have the same student thing. And so they already have access controls for who they allow in, don't allow in. For the staff, our logistical is if they, we're required, where feasible and possible, to allow remote access to our meetings and interactions with our meetings. And so in this particular hall, we're going to have to figure that out. And so that would be a logistical issue that staff between, say, now and, well ahead of publishing the meeting in latter part of October, we've got to figure out, so, and test, because we got to make sure. I mean, we can record it, no problem. The, remote, we have council rules, so unless you're suspending the rules, which is a council action, you have remote, ability under state law that they've got to be able to have call in or interact, and so we'll figure out those logistically. Technology is available. We just got to test it, make sure we can do it.
What about if we want to do this twice a year, what about the very first one being a mock, so that all of this stuff can be run through, we can get it vetted through the various systems, we still have something that's real.
I don't think
being later.
Yeah, I don't think I see an issue with having a mock meeting versus a real meeting. I think we'll be able to go through this as a real meeting.
It takes the pressure off if it's mock the
Yeah.
first time. It's like a dress rehearsal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I'm gonna go just like I am.
I really do appreciate.
I hear what you're
this
saying. I
educational
hear your
opportunity.
concerns, but
Rushing forward, I am concerned with it.
yeah.
Right. So.
Well,
Madam
they have
Mayor,
their own resource officer at the school already that's already there, so I don't think.
So,
Ours trumps him, right?
yeah, so Madam
Yeah.
Mayor, council rules, you're up against your 15 minutes. So
Okay.
further discussion would have to be at
so
the will of the council.
The next step would be that if I have a consensus that,
If you have a consensus, you can ask that we put under other business, the vote for tomorrow for a called meeting.
okay,
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and ask to do that then. Okay. And then we'll have that under other business tomorrow night to have a vote for a special called meeting. And then that would take us to the number 5, which is our review the city council agenda for September 24th. So, Mr. City Administrator, would you like to walk us through that?
All right. We have two ceremonial. We have an introduction of our new community service officer. And then we have a ceremonial swearing in of Patrol Officer Joshua Nowotny. Joshua was our community service officer, and now he is a police officer. And so we have a new hire, which is Jason Craw. And so you'll recognize Joshua. He'll just be in a different color uniform and different color vehicle now. And then you'll see Jason in what is the community service officer's uniform. So changing the guard, if you will.
Okay.
And then Joshua's been training Jason for the last several weeks. Under the consent calendar, we simply have the acknowledgement of bills for the August 2024. Any issues? All right. After public comment, you have resolution number 6, authorizing signing agreements with Enterprise Fleet Management. We have our finance director. We also have guests from Enterprise with us. This was an agenda item presented 2 weeks ago in the council. Several had questions, and so we're bringing that forward. We have 3 representatives from Enterprise to make sure that all questions get answered. And Jeff, you have the floor.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of the council, tomorrow night has 2 resolutions on the agenda before you. One of them is a resolution authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management to provide fleet management services for the city. The second resolution is a supplemental budget. It affects 4 different budgets and reflects the changes or anticipated changes that we would see if we were to enter into an agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management. And I can walk you through kind of what those changes are. None of the expenditures in any of the funds are exceeding 10% of the already adopted budget. So these are very minor changes and only require a resolution. If we were over that 10% threshold, we'd have budget committee involved. And so just to give you an idea of the size and scope. Also wanted to quickly just kind of tee up so you really kind of know what's before you. I think it helps just kind of frame why we would be considering an agreement for fleet management services. And so I've prepared a really just brief, simple illustration for you, just to describe in general terms why we would consider this or why we are recommending it. So what you have before you is a graph, and it's a graph of the projected general fund from our budget. And so in our budget, we did a projection showing out 5 years where we expect the general fund to be. And going 5 years out, in 2028, somewhere in there, we estimated that our resources or expenditures will exceed our resources. So we would be operating at a true deficit then at that point. And so that arrow on there is showing us that it's in our interest to push expenditures out into the future, to slow that pace and try and push that date as far out as we can. So the main thing that we would be getting, I believe, from entering into an agreement with Enterprise is, instead of budgeting for capital purchases of vehicles, and when we've bought vehicles in the past, we've bought them outright. We've had the luxury of having ARPA funds to do that the last couple of years. We should not anticipate receiving federal money for future purchases of vehicles like we had for ARPA. That was great. It was a relief on our general fund. But where we are today, vehicle purchases for police, fire, parks, any administrative, public works, that is all coming from the general fund. So what we're proposing is, instead of outright vehicle purchases, we would be entering into leasing vehicles. Much smaller payments on a lease than spending the full amount on a car. And so what you see in the budget changes is a reflection of removing budgeted capital outlays for vehicles that were in the 25 budget and replacing those with debt service for leases. It also recognizes an amount of resources we would expect to receive from the sale of vehicles entering into a program with Enterprise. And so it just reflects all of those little changes. What the overall net increase to the city over the 4 funds would be a net increase of about $85,000. So that's really, bottom line, that's what you'd be looking at in terms of increasing the appropriations for the city expenditures for fiscal year 25. So with that, we'll open it up to any questions. And also, I know that Enterprise has some representatives with us tonight. They've also prepared a short presentation, and I think it would be beneficial to perhaps go through that, and maybe some of those questions that you have might already be answered through that.
Andrea, you have the floor.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Jeff. Quick question. My presentation is about 7 minutes long. I can certainly shorten it, but is that going to leave enough time for questions?
I would definitely shorten it.
Sure. All right.
Yes, please.
Well, okay, I'll get started. Well, ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you so much for your time today. As a reminder, my name's Andrea. I'm also joined today with our finance director, Sam Noah, as well as our area manager for the Oregon market, Kyle Odell. They're going to be on the call today to answer any and all questions. There's going to be 4 different topics that I'm going to quickly go over. So the first one is going to be a little bit more in depth about what our open-ended equity lease means. The second one is going to be an example of our buying power. Third, our ability to sell vehicles, and then I'll finish it off with some references of what our clients have said about us. So I'm going to share my screen real fast.
So I think we can shorten it with what everyone said about you.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so what we are looking at here is the biggest advantage that you're going to find of our leasing structure. So first is that you are going to be able to own the equity within the vehicles. So normally with the standard dealership lease, it would be that you would make a payment for a period of time and then turn that vehicle in at the end of it. With us, you're able to maintain the equity throughout the entire lease. This is also going to be a lease where you're going to have no mileage restrictions, no wear and tear clauses, as well as there's a lot of flexibility within the leasing structure. So let's say that we wrote out a lease for 60 months and the city would like to get out of that vehicle at month 48, maybe the market's really good, then we would be able to do that for you. Another thing that Jeff had mentioned that our clients have really appreciated is that you're able to spread the cost on new vehicle acquisitions. So that means that rather than paying for a lump sum of 9 vehicles all at once, you're able to spread it over the 5 years. Okay. So this next slide is going to highlight our government's buying power. So essentially what this breaks down here is a 2024 Ram 2500 Tradesman. What you'll see at the top right-hand corner is if you were to purchase that vehicle through a dealer at invoice pricing, meaning no markups, normally you would pay about $49,000. Now, what Enterprise is going to be able to secure for our end clients is incentives of about $4,500 for this vehicle. So that means a price of about $44,659. And what I wanted to highlight on this page, but I won't go too much into the weeds, is essentially the benefit that governments get when you combine your buying power with our ability to sell vehicles. So what you're looking at on the bottom chart is the value of this vehicle in years 1 at 36 months and then after 5 years, and essentially the capital outlay that you can expect within those years. The main thing that we're trying to target is how can we make your depreciation on these vehicles as low as possible. Okay. So we talked about Enterprise's buying power. I'm going to switch it over to Enterprise's ability to sell vehicles. So Enterprise has an entire infrastructure based off of how can we maximize our resale value for ourselves and for our clients. So keep in mind, Enterprise sells 1 million vehicles a year, and if we're off by even just $1, then that means that Enterprise has just lost $1 million. So we take this really seriously. So in 2023, Enterprise sold over 1 million vehicles. It resulted in beating the market by 9%. And really what that translates to is an additional $1,500 for our clients per vehicle. And a key part of how we are able to do this is from our people. So each market has a local marketing team. In Oregon, for you guys, it would be based out of Tualatin, and they focus on building relationships with dealerships and auctions to maximize how much money that our clients are able to get. So, for example, I'm going to focus on City of North Bend's own vehicles for a second. So with those vehicles, we are most likely going to be selling them at an auction. But for Enterprise to take it one step further, we are going to have a trained professional looking over your fleet. They are going to be hand selecting which auction we know it's going to do the best at. We're going to be positioning it in the best spot where it's going to get the most foot traffic. And that same trained professional is going to be at that auction to determine what kind of buyers are there, what types of vehicles are there. And this personal relationship and hands-on approach is really what makes it so that way you're able to get the most money out of these vehicles. And just to highlight a recent resale result for Oregon in August 2024, we were able to get 11% above average market value, which really means $2,000 additionally per vehicle. Okay. So you should already have a letter of reference from Jackson County. I also wanted to speak to some of our other current partners and what they've said. So a year ago, we partnered with City of Staten. They're a 23-car fleet, and what our finance director, James Brand, has said about the program is that it's made the budgeting process a lot easier. It saved their employees a significant amount of time in buying and selling vehicles because they no longer have to go through the due diligence process they've had in the past. Brandon Niche, finance director at City of Lebanon, appreciates that we handle the full administration of the city's fleet and that we collaborate with city staff to determine the right time to get in and the right time to sell those vehicles. And last but not least, Nicole Rutherford, city manager of Coos Bay, likes our ease of process and that our program allows them to be more precise in their financial budgeting. All right. So I'd like to now open it up to any questions that the council members may have.
Question. Can you pull up the slides again and go back to the one that was right before where you had like the people? It was like the dollars where you had the $44,000. I just want to like make understand like the number correctly here. As far as like the cost savings. Is you have so the bottom right where it says capital outlay, like 17,834. Because I was trying to figure out, like, if I was trying to explain this to somebody on the street, the government pricing is 44,659 as opposed to the 49. But what's more important is the amount of money that you would get, that the city of North Bend would get in the resale, which is probably because if most people hear like, oh, you guys are leasing vehicles, they think of a regular traditional retail lease. But here, so if are we so the total cost of savings after 60 months of keeping it as opposed to buying it, is that the $17,000? Or like, what's the best way to highlight, like, here's this truck, here's if we just bought it and weren't in a partnership with you, here's if we bought it and we had it for 60 months and what the resale would be, the difference between the two. Is that difference 17,000?
Yeah. Good question. So what these numbers highlight is specifically what the government pricing is, subtract what the sales price would be at the end of the lease term. So in this example, after 60 months, it's worth $27,000. So subtract it from what you originally paid for it, and then that means over the course of 60 months, you only paid about $18,000 or $297 a month.
Okay. Now, there would be a value if you just outright bought it at 49,000. There still is a value of that you would go out, sell it on your own. But, and that number compared to that 17,000.
You're not gonna get that average sales price with anybody except enterprise.
Right.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point. Traditionally, we've held cars longer
Yeah.
than 5 years. And when we do go to sell them, we're just getting maybe a couple $1,000s maybe for it.
Yeah.
The jaws of life or something.
Yeah, by getting onto a program like this, we're actually maximizing its value at the appropriate time and having somebody watching it that can tell us, hey, it's time to sell. We can get this much for it. And so someone's looking out for us, I feel like, in this situation. We're getting on to really having a smart management of our fleet as opposed to just buy and hold for
Right.
10, 15 years.
Now, obviously, we still have like a cop car, we still have the outfitting of that car, right?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. And I believe we talked with Enterprise about that, and you help with even the local people that we've used for upfitting vehicles that we already use.
Good.
That's correct.
So the budget changes in this are coming from a bunch of funds, which may be confusing, but my understanding is that those were already vehicle cost in there. They're a vehicle, but they're in this fund, we have to move it to the general fund. Is that correct?
Well, let's just walk through the fund changes really quick. So on page 38 of your packet, the first is the wastewater fund. And so the first change you'll see is under resources. And we're increasing the resources of that fund by $14,951, and that's a reflection of the anticipated sale price of vehicles in this fiscal year, of older vehicles that are in our existing fleet. This supplemental budget reduces capital outlay. So our original budget is $968,000 in that fund. We're reducing it by $80,000 to $888,000. That's reducing that line item because we're saying we're not going to go out and buy a vehicle. However, if you look at debt service, it originally had nothing budgeted for that line item. We're actually increasing the budget for debt service, saying we're going to have $47,000 of debt service in this fund. So that's the changes that's happening in the wastewater fund. Gas tax fund,
Yeah, Jeff.
yep,
Unless the council, otherwise I think they get
okay,
it.
yeah, okay,
So,
okay.
yes, you
Yeah.
did a good job, but
All
I
right.
think they
Thank
get
you.
the
Just
rest.
want to make sure they fully understand the supplemental change there.
Okay. All right.
Plus ideally, there's less maintenance, right?
On a newer fleet, there should be less maintenance, more of the routine variety versus less of the breakdown major repair variety.
Well, you
Yeah.
should say on maintenance and fuel because they're more efficient.
Fuel efficiency as well, yes.
What about the maintenance? There's a piece in here for maintenance. Is it part of the contract or is it like a outside benefit? We still maintain, but we get some kind of.
We would be responsible for doing the recommended maintenance. We go through, I believe, pretty much the same repair shops that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the same repair shops that we currently use. However, it's, those repair shops are billing Enterprise, and we're just getting one bill every month from Enterprise with our debt service payments, our maintenance cost, fuel, it all kind of is an all-in-one, so we're just getting one invoice each month that we're responsible for.
Okay.
That's great.
All right.
Give me one of them fuel cards.
Yeah, right?
So,
Thank-
council, before we release the enterprise team, because there's 3 subsequent votes, I believe, tomorrow through the process, the hearing and the 2 votes.
Yes.
So is there any questions before we release, any reservations, anything of that you want to ask them before they bug out of here?
Thank you.
Thank you for putting all the information together and
Yeah,
having the group
absolutely.
come back and answer the questions.
Happy to.
All right, thank you, Andrea, thanks, Samuel and Kyle.
Thank
And,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Right, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
All right, so we have, is the next item to look at the expanding the air service.
Yes, and we have
A
with
special
us
visitor.
a guest. We have Roger Craddock, the director from the airport.
All right.
This is page 43 in your packet.
Welcome, Mr. Craddock.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. I don't have a high-tech presentation for you, so I should be able to make this a little quicker, but I do want to take a moment and provide you an update on what's happening at the airport. Currently, we have in process, in some form or fashion, $13 million worth of capital improvement projects going on at the airport that are new. Those include updating our concourse, a capital improvement project there, replacing part of the legacy apron that was poured in 1943 to park fighter jets on. Or probably wasn't jets at the time in 1943, but it's amazing it held up that long, but it's starting to fall apart and we are replacing a portion of it. I say a portion because to replace the whole 300,000 square feet would be $23 million. We have a project right now for $2 million. We need to move some navigational aids because we are experiencing larger planes. So that's going to occur this next year. We're also doing a runway safety zone extension to make sure that it actually complies with FAA's requirements. And then our new facility that we'll be constructing this next year is a new cargo facility. Because we tore down the building that was built during World War II a couple years ago. Last year, we had 44,000 passengers through the terminal. That was larger than any other year in the past 10 years. Wow. We currently have 2 flights, seasonal, twice a week to Denver and back, and then daily for the majority of the year to San Francisco. I'm here because we want to do more. One of the goals that was provided to me when I became the director at the airport last year was to find new routes, and the highest priority is northbound flights to either Portland or Seattle. My predecessor did work on this back in 2018 and 2019. She came to a number of community partners saying, if we get a grant, would you help sponsor that match? The airport did receive a $750,000 small community air service grant, and we had enough partners that brought more to the table than the requested $750,000. Unfortunately, COVID occurred. Even though we had very positive response from Alaska Airlines, COVID really changed the aviation world, much like it did for everything else. What the aviation world has experienced that we have a severe shortage of pilots now. That shortage is expected to grow as high as 26,000 pilots by 2026. How does that affect us? Well, anybody that's in business to make a profit is going to use their resources to maximize those profits. So they're using their pilots on their largest planes and going to their largest markets. In order to get new routes, it requires incentivizing. Now, we did have a grant, and we still have that grant, to incentivize a northbound flight. But we also want to start a couple of new southbound flights, hopefully one to Vegas and one to Burbank or the LA area. In today's world, airlines just don't start it without an incentive. They require incentives because they want to reduce their risk. They want a safety net to make sure that they can get up to a profitable flight within the 2-year period. We are scheduled to go to Green Bay, Wisconsin in about 3 weeks, where we already have appointments with 6 airlines and hopefully with 2 more that will be making a pitch, a good business pitch on why we should get a new flight here. We're very fortunate to have Bandon Dunes as a major draw to our community. We currently have in excess of 1,000 golfers a month that come through the airport, but we're not getting them all. We actually have quite a bit of leakage because of lack of connections. People are flying into Eugene, Medford, and even Portland. So we would like to redirect them and get them here. That would benefit us all, and it would benefit the many businesses that serve the airport. Again, we're looking and asking for North Bend to reaffirm your prior commitment of $7,500 a year for 3 years. If we're successful at getting a northbound flight. For budgetary impact, that is not a request for this year's budget. We don't anticipate flights resuming until mid-2025 if we're successful, or early 2026. So this, of course, would have to be part of your normal budget process. We have received to date, as of last night, about $900,000 in commitments so far. But again, we're trying to do far more than just the normal match. We're trying to incentivize flights to other southern locations. We anticipate even more coming in, and we would like North Bend to join us as a community partner in this endeavor.
That leakage is probably pretty big, huh?
It is, yeah. We are, and I guess I should say that Band and Dunes is such a huge part of this that Marie Simons will be attending those meetings with us in person from Band and Dunes to make the business case.
What about a hop to Eugene? Small plane.
Yeah, that's always an opportunity. I can share that there's only been 2 interstate addition of flights since COVID, one to Redmond, and it's only seasonal, and it's during the winter times when the roads are not passable. And then Medford was able to secure an additional route to Portland. So I will say that because the market's changed a little bit, that some airlines are using charters, charters being normally around 20 passengers. And they're using that not because of a profit driven, but they need that time for training for pilots in a pilot seat in order to get them to qualify for larger planes.
Now, what's your ask? How much of a commitment?
7,500.
a year for 3 years.
So several years ago, the airport had come to us and the council at the time had agreed to put in 7,500. Obviously, you see that our resources are very slim when we're looking at ways to manage our fleet and things. But I feel that it shows that North Bend has we want to show that we have some skin in the game, that we are open for business here, and that we are trying to secure, when you said, when you made the comment about when you became the executive director of the airport and you want to do more, I don't know if you heard it, but the entire city of North Bend was cheering outside. I mean, it is one of the other top things that we hear all the time is about how people want more air service. So it was kind of like, I know it's not a ton of money, our $7,500, but when you apply for those grants, I think it's important to show that you have support from the cities.
A long list with.
Yeah.
This doesn't become real unless he does get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
it's a contingent possible future expenditure.
And that $7,500 would be planned into the 2025 budget if we vote on it tomorrow evening, correct?
It'll go into your fiscal 26
Or
budget.
26 budget, okay,
Yeah,
26
and,
budget.
and there's always mechanisms. I know that in the, basically we bifurcated this budget with some of the money for July Jubilee. So potentially we can take the difference of that. We've also been talking on how to, I'll call it what it is, game the system, which gamed it back at us thanks to the legislature. Redo, you may recall we came to you all about the marijuana growing in city limits. And so we have found the loophole that Coos Bay's been using. And so we will come back to you with that ordinance with a very specific area that could allow grow that no one's ever going to grow there. And in doing so, then make us eligible for getting that portion of the state money. They took this,
That's like 10 grand, that would come.
yeah, I took this to the folks at the legislature, and they were miffed and couldn't believe that the state was doing what they were doing. So we'll just use that loophole, and so that'll bring in that amount. Marijuana money, like gas tax and everything, is reducing all the time, and then we could make up the difference. So we feel from a staff standpoint, we can accommodate that without anything on the budget, so. With that said, Madam Mayor, you're at your 15 minutes for this agenda item, so
Okay,
it's up to the council to decide if they want to
We're
continue
at 15
conversation.
minutes. Is it a quick question?
Yeah, it's a quick question. So does the airport then have the ability to come up with a 750K to the matching requirement that's planned and provided for?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right. Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Good luck. Go get them. Get us some air service. We appreciate you and your work. Okay, so
Thank you,
that
Roger.
then was, what else do we have here on
All
the
right,
agenda?
we now have our public works that's going to talk to us. Actually, are we doing the mower? We're doing the mower first. So we
Okay.
have a Kubota tractor and Tiger mower.
All right. All
And
right,
then you can
Ralph.
talk to them about the blower.
Counselor Gall's got a football game to go to here, so just,
I'm working it.
Yeah.
Best I can for you.
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, we spent $34,000 in the last 2 years of maintenance on our mower. A new one is $107,000. The mower we have is 12 years old, and if you've heard complaints because the grass is growing or a fire problem, it's because our mower's been broke half the season the last 2 years. Got 3 prices. We recommend buying a Kubota mower.
And if the council approves the mower, that means that we'll do the right of ways, which means all those campaign signs have got to come down.
Sounds like a win to me.
How can we do this on the enterprise?
I've been away a month or so.
Okay, so any questions about the mower for Ralph?
No questions?
How do we get
Alright.
on the enterprise contract?
Yeah.
Now we'll go to the Houdini actions of staff in the hybrid blower.
Hybrid blower for wastewater treatment plant. Tell us more.
Oh,
Madam Mayor,
Quickly,
we had informed you we lost our main blower, not actually our main blower, the blower we run the most, because it was the most efficient. Power costs will have gone up as of January 1st of next year, 50% from January 1 of 2023. Anyway, long story short, got prices on various blowers, looking for efficiency on those, and decided to see if we could squeeze a little money out of the Oregon Department of Energy, which we're supposed to be gonna get an agreement tomorrow to sign, should we so choose. They evaluated the engineering study, which was included in your packet. I think it was 48 pages. They recommended the Kaiser hybrid screw blower as the most efficient. It saves about $26,000 in power costs over the next 5 years. It paid itself off with a full installed cost of roughly $130,000 in 5.9 years. But they're gonna finance almost 90% of it. So we're looking at about a 5.9 month payback. Should we purchase this and install it? Just in power savings.
Questions from the council?
Here in a couple of weeks, blow all them ducks off there so we can shoot them out and day.
Okay. Any questions from the council? No? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. From there, there were no executive session planned, city administrator's report, committee reports, council comments, other business called meeting, special called meeting for October 24th, then adjournment, and then we bounce over to the next agenda item, Madam Mayor, which is review the URA.
Okay, I see we've got just two
We
items on
got
that.
the approval of the URA minutes under consent, and then you have a reciprocal easement agreement between Union Avenue, which is 1840 and 1858.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Bay Cleaners, and I think I told you previously, we've got the vacant lot between the structures for access. And so we've worked this agreement out so that they get in, get access, and vice versa. So it's a straightforward, thanks to the work of our Public Works Director working with our city attorney.
Okay, any questions about the easement on Union? No. Well, I think that's it then. So we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.